All right, welcome back to Schweatys YouTube. In this video, as you can tell by the title, I'll be installing the Xbox Schwetty. So this is my personal controller. It's a light gray with a dark gray backing. I'll be installing the blue Alcantara, starting with the front left. So just to give you a small introduction on how to begin, I like to start with the top pieces. That'll be this piece and this piece. They're the easiest to install, and basically the rear pieces will line up with the top pieces, so it makes it a lot easier. Also, the adhesive on the back of the Schwetty is sticky, so it'll stick to almost anything, including random hairs. So where I like to start is down here in this bottom corner. This bottom corner matches this crease and this crease. This top piece of Alcantara will fit on this top piece of plastic of the controller. Not this piece, this piece. Not this piece, this piece. It'll sit right here. This corner will sit right here in this corner. I'm using all of my fingers today. So let's start by peeling the backing off of the Alcantara. So this is like a really thin paper backing. It's kind of like wax paper. And this is the back of the Alcantara, and this is the front. So like I said, we're going to start in this bottom corner. It's easiest to start in this bottom corner. I designed these so that it fit in this corner to be like a starting point to show you how to begin to install the Schwettys. So, couple rules. When installing the Schwetty, never press really hard before you know where you like your, before the Schwetty is in its final resting place, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Lightly, when you're putting the Schwetty down, lightly put it down. Do not use any force at all to put the Schwetty down, because essentially you'll be activating the adhesive on the back. Okay, first rule. So we're going to start in this bottom corner. I'll show you. There's something weird right here. Let me get that off so I don't have to keep looking at it. Kind of OCD. So you're going to leave about a millimeter space at the bottom edge of the top piece of the controller. And then what you're going to do next, just lightly press that. I just lightly press that to keep it in place and not have it slide off the controller. This edge of the Schwetty lines up with the crease in the controller. You're going to want to keep the same amount of space all the way along this crease. So what you're going to do, I don't know if you can see, but you're just going to lightly move the Schwetty. You're going to have to use a little bit of force to push the Schwetty. I'm using my thumb to press down the Schwetty onto the controller to keep it in place, and then I'm using this my middle finger to basically line the Alcantara up where I want it to be, and then using my thumb to press it down in place so it does not move. So I'm pushing it. Believe me, you might not be able to see it in the camera, but I'm pushing the Alcantara that way to keep that edge. I don't know if you noticed, but this edge is curved and this edge is kind of straight. It's got a slight curve to it, but it's more straight than the Alcantara. But I had to shape it this way to get this curve out of this Schwetty. So that's somewhat what's the word I'm looking for? The distance between the crease in the controller and the edge of the Schwetty is somewhat uniform, and that's what we want. So I'm not gonna lay this down, even though you just saw me do it. It's not something you want to do. Don't press it down until you know that's where it's gonna be, its final resting place. So next step, do not press this side down. You're gonna need a lot of this Schwettys to reach to this side. Second rule, there's no need necessarily to stretch the Schwettys because it was designed and cut to lay where it needs to lay. So I'm gonna peel this up just a little bit because I don't want, if you lay it down incorrectly, it'll have creases in it afterward. And not to say that it's wrong, but it wasn't shaped to have creases in it. I tried to put a good shape on it so that it laid correctly. So I don't know if you are paying attention to me, but I'm kind of beginning to lay it down just because I've done this so many times. I'm beginning to lay it down without telling you what I'm doing. So if you get this edge correct, the rest of it should lay where it's supposed to lay. As you can see with me pulling it up, it came away from this bottom edge, which is important. So we're gonna put that down where it's supposed to. And then just because the fabric is somewhat of a 2D shape and the controller is a 3D shape, it needs to be conformed to the curves of the controller. So you see the Alcantara is kind of up away from the controller. So what you'll need to do is pay attention to this light gray line, so there's two edges of the light gray. As you can see, there's one edge that's like that way and the other edge is like that way. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but the Alcantara is not going to lay over the edge of the light gray that's next to the dark gray. It's going to stay on the top only. So there's a line there and we want the Alcantara to basically line up with that line. See if we can get closer to see. So we're just going to lightly press the Alcantara to line it up with that line and kind of push that corner back, and that's gonna leave us with what I call a bubble. So you'll see we have two bubbles. All right, sorry for the break, had to cater to my camera. Okay, so back to the bubbles. So we've got two bubbles, as you can see here. I'm gonna show you how to get rid of those right now. So as you can see, I feel like I have more space up here along this edge than I do down here. So I'm gonna to relieve some of that bubble. The bubble is basically it's basically a sign that you have too much fabric in one place. So but that's on purpose because it kind of requires the amount of fabric that the way I cut it, it kind of requires that fabric so that it gets around the curve of the controller. So essentially what you'll do, I'm almost positive that this edge is gonna sit the way it is. So it doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be pretty close. But to get rid of a bubble, can't see it around this. To get rid of a bubble, you basically need to go right down the middle of it to split the bubble on either side of the original bubble. So the edge of this Alcantara is down. So essentially, and this bubble is about the size of my finger. So I'm just going to use my finger to evenly press down that bubble. It's as simple as that. And evenly press the rest of that bubble down. And you can see that lays pretty flat. And my edge there is decent. I've got a small bubble here. If you want, you can very easily, very simply raise this up to create a huge bubble to disperse all of that bubble right over that edge. And boom, the top Schwettys is perfect. So we'll go to the right top. All right, next piece. I am gonna fast forward through this piece because it's the same. It's not the same shape. It's slightly different because, believe it or not, I think it's this. There's like the rising of this gray sits further down toward this corner than the recessed circle that sits here. This sits further this way. So the shapes are like minutely different, but they are slightly different. But they lay just the same. The rules are the same. The how you lay it is just the same. So I'm gonna fast forward through this just so this video isn't as long as it would be if I walked through it. And here we go. And we're done. Both top pieces are installed. They are smooth. They feel good. I like it. It's great. You might have seen me do a couple of things to correct some errors that I made. When I first began my install, I had 2 slivers of wrinkle here. And basically what that was, what you saw me do to correct it was peel this back to straighten out that straighten out those wrinkles, and then reapply it softly though. You don't want to press down firmly until the piece is where it will rest in its final resting place. All right, so the rear pieces, they can be challenging, but they're easy if you do it the way I'm about to instruct you to do it. The shape of these is kind of weird. Peeling back this, the backing on the Alcantara, this Schwettys, will probably be the most difficult part. The back usually takes more adjusting than the front did. The front has, you know, basically this triangle shape that it fits in, so it's really easy to do with no real issues. The back, however, relies on the front to be in place. So anyways, the first step is kind of, I probably got a little bit of adhesive on my fingers, what that is. So the first step is lining up this small curve, this small right curve to this right curve. They're supposed to match. And then the tops of the Schwettys, they almost they're like sister and brother, they go together, so it's kind of like a smooth transition between them. You want to leave about 1 millimeter of space between each piece, maybe a little bit more. We'll see once I lay it down. So you want that uniform spacing all the way down. I can tell you right here that this space is a little bit less than this space, so we might run into an issue, but I'm not gonna press this Schwettys down really hard, so that I can pick it up if I need to adjust it. So what you just saw me do was kind of tug the Schwettys to the right to make that uniform spacing. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a finger, lay it here, and what you wanna do is drag your finger along the Schwettys and lay it down around the controller. So watch exactly what I do. Lightly, I'm just lightly touching it so that I can peel it back up. Lightly, I'm gonna curve around the curvature of the controller, just barely laying it down as I go. I'm gonna go straight down the middle. So, a couple things wrong with how it ended up. So, this piece is made to lay more that way. So, basically, when I came around here and I went straight there, well, I really came up here. I should have went more that way to push the Schwettys that way, but it's no issue. It's really as simple as peeling it back up. That's what it looks like when you peel it up correctly, because you only put it down softly. We're gonna basically make sure we go over to the right. So, and when you lay it down, it's supposed to be smooth to the controller. You shouldn't have any crazy wrinkles. So we're gonna build it up just a little bit more, so that this one actually might require just a little bit of tug to get it where it needs to go. It's supposed to be more, this edge, the edge of this Schwetti is supposed to cover the corner of the back of this controller. So remember when I was telling you that the top edge might be too close? I need to widen my space just a little bit. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna completely take this Schwetti off and start over. All right, so I reapplied it. I believe I put just a teeny bit more space in there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna use both my thumbs to lay this Schwetti down as I move around it. So I'm just lightly pressing so that I have no bubbles as I move this Schwetti. And then I'm gonna lay this corner down. It's a little bit higher than I want. So I'm gonna peel this up and then I'm gonna tug it this way so that that presses down where I want it to go. All right, I have a gigantic bubble there. So what we're gonna have to do to fix that, I'm gonna pick up this corner up here. And honestly, like I expect the trouble out of this piece just because there's so many curves. Like you got a curve there, you got a curve there, you got a curve in there, over here, and you kind of got to lay this 2D piece of fabric, you know, across it to get it to do what you want it to do. But it will do it. It's possible. Just got to play with it a little bit. That bubble's a little bit bigger than I want it. And let's see if I have any space. See if we can stretch that bubble out. There we go. It just takes a little bit of finessing. You might have a few bubbles that are hard to see. Just roll your, if you can feel them, you can feel them. I can feel them. You just rub over them. If they're too big, they'll cause wrinkles. If they're too big, they'll cause wrinkles, and you really need to pick the fabric up and try to relay it. Once it's where you want it to be, just make sure you hit all your corners and lay all your fabric down. Make sure it is where you want it to be before you really press it down. Once you get it down, really put some effort into pressing the fabric to the controller. Like really put some effort in it. You see how I'm almost ironing the Schwetti down. Once it's down, you're not gonna hurt it and it's not gonna want to come off. It's a really durable product, and you're gonna love it when it's all together. So now I'm gonna fast forward putting the other side on, and then we'll go from there. We can talk about how fantastic this is. Let's go. All right, because the back is probably the more difficult piece, I'm going to do this one with instruction again. So matching the curves from the two pieces, I'm gonna leave maybe a little bit more than a millimeters worth of space between them, and get just a little bit more of that. Boom. Peel it up so I got all the Alcantara to work with, and I'm just gonna work both my fingers around. It seems to want to work the best. And I have a little bit too much bubble there, so pick that up, and I'm gonna stretch this to my left because I know it has a tendency to roll toward the right. And I might have stretched it too much. See how that lays. Got a little bit of a bubble there, so I'm gonna split it. And down. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Feels pretty good. All my edges are lined up. Small bubble there, and lay that down. Make sure you spread it evenly. Don't just press it down. Try to spread it out throughout that curve, that line. So I had a bubble here, so I really want to stretch that out amongst all of this. So I got a little bit of a dimple there. So what I mean by stretch it out is pick it up just a little bit or a lot of it. Start from where that was and lay it down. And it's a little bit better. A little bit better. Press it down and you are ready to play. There we go. The edges of the Alcantara was cut with a blade, so what you see, the little dust of Alcantara here, it's just the frayed edges. But there you go. Installed Schweatys on an Xbox One controller. Thank you guys for watching. Check out my other videos if you have a PlayStation or you want to wrap your console. More videos coming soon. Thank you.